trouble you that the nature of the weapons that we are giving Israel, the so-called dumb bombs, which don't have any kind of a device on them that aim them,
right?
That about 49 to 50% of the bombs that they have dropped, Colonel, some of them as big as 2,000 pounds. You know better than I, probably better than anybody listening now, the type of damage that can do. Why do we have these things? Why are we selling such things? Why are we facilitating their indiscriminate slaughter?
Money. It's wonderful for our manufacturers when they can get rid of these essentially munitions we would never use. Even our dumb bombs, 250-pound Mark 72s or 500-pound bombs or whatever they might be, we put JDAMs on them. We put these joint munitions kits, we call them, on the bomb that makes it suddenly a smart bomb. Right. And then you can hit your target with about 95, 96% a probability of about a 10-meter CEP, which means you're going to hit the target, in other words. That's not what they're doing. They're using these dumb bombs and they're bombing indiscriminately and they're killing civilians. I imagine we're not giving it to them, not because Lockheed Martin and others that make them wouldn't salivate at giving them to them, is because we'd have to pay for them. And they're very expensive. We're giving them to the Saudis right now to bomb the Houthis. But look at that. The Saudis don't even know how their pilots pickle those things, fire them at altitude so they won't be in danger themselves from their extended range F-15s. Then what does that do? Well, it goes to the extent of its range, which isn't that far, really, even ER. And what happens is it becomes a dumb bomb. And so in the war with the Houthis, you get bombs dropping on school buses with 48 children in them, for example.
Here's Jake Sullivan, number 6, Chris, attempting to justify the use of dumb bombs. It's a great question from the reporter. You tell me if in your opinion, Colonel, his answer makes any sense.
Almost half of the 30,000 bombs that have been dropped on Gaza have been so-called dumb bombs, imprecise. If there was a real intent to protect civilians, wouldn't they be using much more precise, smaller munitions?
When it comes to the issue of the bombs, the type of bombs that Israel is using, what I would say is that different types of munitions require different types of military operations, meaning the method by which bombs are delivered that don't have the tail kits on them is different in terms of how the planes fly, in terms of how the targets are selected. And they all go through the same process, a process by which Israel selects targets and tries to distinguish between targets that hit Hamas and those that might take the lives of innocent civilians. At the end of the day, what we have consistently said is that Israel has the intent to make sure that it is drawing those distinctions clearly and in a sustainable way, and we want to see the results match up to that. That's a conversation that I had in full with them today and yesterday as well, and we'll continue to do that, including on the type of munitions they use and when they use a certain type of munitions, how those are delivered, to ensure that from the United States' perspective, they are fulfilling their obligations, their responsibilities as a state to international humanitarian law.
I think that was an absurd response.
Jake ought to stick to things that he knows something about. That was an absurd response. And if anything, I take from that response that, okay, if that's true, and some 20,000 civilians, half of whom are children, have been killed, are you saying the Israelis are making the distinction so that they drop the more accurate bombs on civilians and houses and hotels and hospitals and other places? Is that what you're saying? Because they sure are killing a whole hell of a lot of civilians. I just listened to Philippe Lazzarini, the head of UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency.
Right.
It's like I was listening to Sergio Vieira de Mayo when he was killed by Al-Qaeda in Iraq, a tragic event that set our operations in Iraq back at least a year and poisoned them really for the rest of the time we were there. That's what's happening with his people. They're getting killed. 100 or so have been killed. These are workers of the United Nations. Then you look at the journalists who've been killed. You look at the other people who are in Gaza to try and help, either rendering humanitarian assistance or report on the conflict or whatever, and the number of them that have been killed in the short time the war has been waged is just astronomical. So, Jake, if what you say is true, they have reversed the logic on you.